Just as a disclaimer, this video may feature some spoilers and some material that's not appropriate for everyone. It's maybe too disturbing or too horrifying, so your discretion is advised.
Style is the answer to everything. Fresh way to approach adult.
Loneliness will sit over our roofs with brooding wings. Listen to them, the children of the night. What music they make.
I want to suck your blood!
All classic quotes from a batshit crazy dude, and we are talking about Dracula. Dracula is indisputably one of the most profound figures of horror ever to exist, and his existence is immense, with many horrifying, theatrical, and sexy interpretations. Today I bring you the counts that count, some of my favorite Dracula seen in films throughout the decades. But be warned, this list is not for the faint of heart or humor. And these are in no particular order, by the way. I hope you all are enjoying my cloak I have on. I'm kind of doing the vampire look today, maybe. Maybe not. There you go. My shirt's covering, or my cloak. Yes, look at this vibrant cloak right. Ooh, spooky. I like that. He's so chic. He's so depressed. He's so Romanian, and he can go out in the sun. So starting off with number 1, Blood for Dracula, 1974. This is Andy Warhol presents Paul Morrissey directing Andy Warhol's Dracula, or Blood for Dracula. In this adaptation, the reluctant count is in Italy and is looking for virgins to feast upon, but oh no, the 20th century curse is upon him, as there seems to be a terrible lacking in pure meat, inadequate vegetables, and, well, virgins. I love the theatrical makeup of this film. I love the main actor, Udo Kier, who can also be seen in a lot of character roles such as Flesh for Frankenstein and Mark of the Devil, as long as many others throughout the 70s. And if you're from my generation, though, I think you will most likely recognize him for his role in The Haunted Mansion. Just kidding, that's Terrence Stamp. That's not Udo Kier. But I thought it was worth a try at this joke. So I love Andy Warhol, and his high production really makes this film great. It makes it look gorgeous. The romantic gothic aesthetic of this film is very enticing. The script is horrendous and at times ridiculous, which makes it unintentionally hilarious, but the movie is at least visually appetizing, and it's something you can really sink your teeth into. I wish I had fangs right now. That'd be so good to go.
I guess I have to eat the rest of the Romanian lettuce with lemon. The oil. They put so much oil here on everything.
If that was you on the phone and you on the bus, then who was flickering the lights? Nosferatu!
So number 2 is Nosferatu and Nosferatu the Vampire. Yes, this is a twofer in this, since technically the 1979 is a subtle remake to the original 1922 version. But we'll start with the F.W. Murnau 1922 film. It is a German expressionism classic and is a resilient film, surviving its initial execution, court order to be destroyed due to a suit ruled in favor of Bram Stoker's estate, aka widow. Where would we be without this film? The fates were really looking out for cinema when they saved some copies. This film has the Murnau look. It is what I like to call a very cynical yet humorous, dark yet whimsical, surreal appeal a la German expressionism. And these can also be noticed in his films like Der letzte Mann or The Last Laugh, Faust, and Sunrise. Moving on to Nosferatu the Vampire. Nosferatu with higher production value and the public domain of Dracula. Thanks to the 20th century production and public domain of Dracula, made it possible for them to use the names from the novel. Nosferatu the Vampire, 1979, Werner Herzog. He does an amazing film. Herzog pays homage to Murnau's German expressionism with a very polished version while maintaining the gothic feel of the original, and it also hones in on the sexuality and pathos of Dracula. Nosferatu. Dracula. All right, moving on. Here it is. The Brits take back Drac. at least in a Shakespearean-esque hypersexual low-budget adaptation. Horror of Dracula, 1958, Terence Fisher and Hammer Horror. Christopher Lee is my all-time favorite Dracula, so this movie is, of course, one of my favorite Dracula adaptations of all time. Basically, I love all of the Dracula films and all of the Hammer Horror films in general. I love how Hammer Horror films look very similar to Giallo in terms of the production quality and the blood and gore. They really do focus in and make that kind of one of the stars of the show, unintentionally. I love the Shakespearean vibe you have with Mr. Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, and if you didn't recognize him, I have him with us today, very special guest, Mr. Peter Cushing. Do you have anything to say on your role of Van Helsing? Very nice. They are an incredible acting duo, and they did star alongside each other in many Dracula films, continued on, and Hammer Horror productions. There are many reasons that set Lee's Dracula apart from other actors, but he once said in an interview that, "I've always tried to put an element of sadness, which I've termed the loneliness of evil, into his character." So basically, he gets his power from his loneliness. We all know what that means. If you haven't seen any Hammer Horror films or Hammer Horror Dracula films, I would highly recommend them, as they are very entertaining to watch and they are very gruesome. So if you're into that, I think you will definitely like the video. Look at this. I just can't get too loud. I just can't get over that. Look at how amazing this looks. Okay, I'm done. I'm done with that. The OG of 20th century American horror. The OG of the terrifying talkies. 1931 Dracula. Todd Browning's classic Universal horror film is a seductive watch and a great adaptation of Bram Stoker's original novel, thanks to the purchase of novel and stage rights by Universal. Got that Universal budget. Can't beat it. I love Bela Lugosi in all the Universal monster films. This film just encapsulates early cinema and early sound recorded films. Even though most films from this era were just shot on sound stages or studios, as Dracula was, the effects and cinematography do push this further than the average films at the time. Also, the crackling audio and lighting effects do give this an extra eeriness. Bela Lugosi gives a great performance, as he did play the role on Broadway, and while the studio did not want him initially and went through several changes to cast the role, he ultimately snagged it. While he wrote his own fate in commenting that he never wanted to play Dracula after this film, and he hoped he wouldn't be typecast, it can't be denied that his version helped define cinema horror iconography and left a lasting impact on the subject of vampires and vampirism, as well as the horror genre itself. Overall, it is a haunting classic adaptation. The Count may have cursed him with his name, but his coolness was all his own. So this is Blacula, 1972, directed by William Crane. In this version, the Count's cursed so-called soul brother, Prince Mamuwald, arises from his coffin imprisonment in Dracula's crypts thanks to some interior designers and wreaks havoc upon 1970s Los Angeles. He's just honestly trying to find his true love again, who Dracula, a real buzzkill in this one, hits on and then leaves for dead after he turns Mamuwald into a vampire for defending his wife and trying to stop the slave trade. Really, Dracula? You really dropped the ball on that one. Blacula is campy blaxploitation at its finest. I'm a big fan of both exploitation and blaxploitation from the 1970s. Blacula is still a really great, solid film in my opinion due to its hilarity and how well it's shot even for a B-movie. The character of Prince Mamuwald is actually really sentimental and written to show a more romantic side of vampires and the undead. William Marshall, of course, is an amazing actor in this role, and he really plays Mamuwald well. The sequel, Scream Blacula Scream, is also to die for. You're gonna get these all videos, so buckle up. And it also features the amazing B-movie blaxploitation 70s superstar Pam Grier, so I'd recommend that one too. What's more terrifying than Dracula, you may ask? Hippies. Dracula A.D. 1972. Alan Gibson. This film features another great performance from vampire tag team Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, and this time Johnny Alucard, played by Christopher Neame, resurrects Dracula, and the Count begins plotting his revenge against the Van Helsing family and targets the ancestor from his nemesis, his great-granddaughter Jessica Van Helsing. This is just classic Hammer horror production. Girls, gore, and ghouls. Also, it has one of my favorite Hammer horror girls, Carolyn Munro, in this film. I love her. She is one of my all-time favorites. I'll have to make a list on that, I think. It also features the beautiful, gorgeous actress model Marsha Hunt, who is also known as Mick Jagger's muse. The 70s London vibe also makes this film visually and musically appealing, as well as gives it a really nice edge and provides an intriguing parallelism between self-indulgent and rebellious adolescence and vampirism. And we are down to our last one. I'm gonna keep doing this because I love it. Oh, it looks so good. We are down to our last Dracula adaptation. Low budget production, campiness, explicit sexuality. These ingredients come together to create a sizzling, medium rare, self-indulgent 70s horror flick. Count Yorga Vampire 1970. This was directed by Bob Kaladin. This version sees ASL fluent Count Dracula recently moved to a Los Angeles mansion where he targets a group of youths, one of them whose mother recently passed away after mysteriously being involved with the Count himself. Originally, it was supposed to be a softcore porno. However, to get Robert Quarry to play the role of the Count, they had to make it into a real horror film and a real horror show at that. Fun fact, the studio actually considered having Count Yorga serve as an adversary in Dr. Phoebes Rises Again, the sequel to Dr. Phoebes, or the Abominable Dr. Phoebes, and it just didn't work out, but that would have been a really interesting pair and duo, I would have to say. This movie is very entertaining and Robert Quarry does a really good job in the role, and overall, the cast brings a pretty good performance. Not to mention this film has that classic low-budget B-movie aesthetic, but it's shot pretty well and manages to keep some of that softcore tease. Dracula's at it again. Or should I say Count Yorga is at it again. And that wraps up the video, or should I say that closes the coffin door on this one. Love those. So remember, the next time you're thinking about Dracula, drinking wine and eating chicken, it's just a daydream. But really, I'll see you in the next video. I had a really fun time making this, and I'll catch you later. Bye. Let me readjust right now. My legs.